You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for listening. We'll get you recapped on last week's action and get you set for this week's slate of football games, including our Spotlight Game of the Week. John Tranchina of the Tulsa World will join us to talk about Cincinnati and Tulsa, which is a Saturday night game coming up this weekend. So I'm recording on Wednesday, the 28th, roughly 5:15 p.m., so hopefully you'll get to hear this podcast. I'm going to record the interview with John in just a little bit. That will be power and internet permitting. And of course, then I deliver that to our boss, Andrew Fagley. And as long as he has power and internet, he will serve it up. And hopefully you'll be listening to this with the ability to get through the storm of Hurricane Ian as it makes its way through the state. And if we can bring you a little bit of entertainment to help you pass the time, that's what we're going to be here to do. And if it ends up being a later post of the podcast, still good stuff, because this will be our first check-in on Tulsa this year. So there you go. And again, we just hope everybody gets through this storm safe and sound. Looking at the scoreboard from last week, South Florida was trounced by Louisville 41-3. In the battle for the Iron Skillet, it goes again to TCU as they downed SMU 42-34. Temple shut out UMass 28-0. Cincinnati rolled over Indiana 45-24. It was Memphis taking down North Texas 44-34. UCF topped Georgia Tech 27-10. Tulsa was defeated by Ole Miss 35-27. Houston took care of Rice 34-27. It was Navy in two overtimes defeating East Carolina in the lone conference game of the week, 23-20. And in the Battle of the Bell, it was Tulane falling short to Southern Miss, 27-24. This week's games look like this. First game is Friday night. Tulane at Houston, 7 o'clock on ESPN. All times are Eastern, by the way. Houston leads the all-time series 19-7, and they won last year's game 40-22. Turning to Saturday, Temple at Memphis, noon on ESPNU. Temple leads the all-time series 4-3 and won last year's meeting 34-31. Navy at Air Force, the Commander-in-Chief series, noon kickoff on CBS. Air Force leads the all-time series 32-22. And they won last year's meeting 23-3. East Carolina, South Florida, that's going to be a 2:30 kick on ESPN+, and that game has been relocated out of Tampa to FAU in Boca Raton, or, of course, I like to call it Del Boca Vista. South Florida leads the all-time series 9-3, but East Carolina won last year's tilt 29-14. SMU UCF, this has been affected by Hurricane Ian with the scheduling. Sunday at 1 o'clock on ESPN+. The Knights lead the all-time series 8-2. SMU was victorious last year by a 55-28 score. Up next, we talk about our Spotlight Game of the Week, Cincinnati at Tulsa. Joining us to discuss that will be John Tranchina of the Tulsa World. That's all coming up next when the AAC Report returns.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
All right, now time to talk about our Spotlight Game of the Week as Tulsa plays host to Cincinnati. And joining us to talk about that now, we have a new guest on the show this week. John Tranchina of the Tulsa World. For many years, Kelly Hines has been our go-to person to talk Tulsa football, but she has moved over to the Oklahoma State beat. We'll catch up with her in the Big 12, but John is here to take over the reins as the new beat person for Tulsa. John, thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All right.
And I know I have big shoes to fill with Kelly is very well revered in this role, so I know I got a lot to live up to.
Well, I'm sure you're going to do a great job, and of course, we've always appreciated Kelly very much here. So let's talk about the season so far. It's so far 2 up, 2 down for Tulsa, and some up and down moments and games, and of course, coming off a tough loss to Ole Miss, 35-27 last week. Give me your assessment as we've hit the 4-game mark so far.
Yeah, it has been a very up and down season so far. I say that's a good assessment of it. Within games, the first 2 games were like roller coaster emotional rides up and down throughout both of them. Then they finally seemed to like really hit their stride with the big blowout win over Jacksonville State. I mean, granted, it was a lesser opponent, but they did everything they intended to and had a real solid game in that one. And they seemed to they were on their way to a really good game against Ole Miss. And then what probably many Tulsa fans would have considered the worst case scenario was quarterback Davis Brin getting hurt midway through that game. And they got down really quickly after he went out. But amazingly enough, the defense held Ole Miss, shut them out in the second half, and backup Braylon Braxton came in and nearly pulled off the comeback. So it's hard to say what we got in this team, because they looked a lot better than we necessarily would have thought they would have, especially without Davis Brin in that game against Ole Miss. So still kind of waiting to see which team is the one that really emerges full time here.
And, of course, that's a pretty big order this week as the defending conference champion Bearcats pay a visit. And, we're not that far removed from Tulsa and Cincinnati playing for the conference title not that long ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's what everybody talks about here is there was that game, a heartbreaking loss, and then last year's another heartbreaking loss where they were Cincinnati was number 2 at the time, ranked number 2 in the nation, and Tulsa nearly pulled off a comeback of a fumble at the goal line on what could possibly have been the game-tying touchdown in the final seconds. That was a rough way for that to end. So the Tulsa fans have had some recent heartbreak with Cincinnati, and both times almost pulling off the upset that nobody thought they could do. So we'll see if 3 times is the charm here, but these 2 teams have had a lot of good close battles that people maybe didn't think Tulsa would even be in. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out this time. Of course, the big question for this game is going to be, again, Davis Brin, is he going to be able to play? And if he does, at what capacity is he going to be at? that's the biggest question at this point.
Yeah. Of course, Cincinnati, by all rights, should be the favorite in the conference again this year, but they are a bit of a depleted team from their championship squad a year ago. Of course, they've got a lot of talent to backload to fill in, but I think this is still an interesting scenario. As you've said, Tulsa's played Cincinnati very, very close. It's kind of developed an interesting little rivalry there. So I would like to think that there's some opportunity there that certainly meat on the bone for them to take.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's how people here feel. Like, this is a team. Tulsa usually seems to play up to their opponent when they play teams that are ranked higher than them or considered higher than them. In the last couple of years, they've played really tough games against higher rated opponents. But and in this case, I think this is another situation where, the bright circumstances could lead to another potential upset or at least a really close game again. So we'll see how it goes. This is not, and you're right, this is not the same Cincinnati team that was ranked number 2 last year. They've lost a lot of players off that squad. It's still a good team, and I think this week they landed just outside the top 25. Oh, they're knocking on the door again, but this will be an interesting game because it could go either way, in my opinion.
Can you tell me what's the status of Keelan Stokes, who, of course, took a vicious helmet-to-helmet hit in the Ole Miss game? In fact, that video made the rounds pretty heavily on social media. How is he doing?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm assuming he's going to play. It never really came up again, because he got back into that game and made several plays after he came out briefly after that nasty hit. And honestly, he probably should not have gone in. Not 100% sure on the rules where if there's spotters in the crowd like they have in other sports, where I guess they took a look at him and he passed whatever tests he needed to, but that was a vicious hit. And as someone who has suffered multiple concussions in my lifetime, I question the fact that they let him back in. All that said, I believe because he did go back in the game, I feel like there's no question that he's going to be in the lineup this week.
And as far as the Golden Hurricane are on defense, again, as you mentioned, they got down to a deficit to Ole Miss, but the defense found a way to get them, keep them in the game and allow them to have a chance. What are the standouts on defense so far this season?
Yeah, the defense has been a little up and down as well, and one of the key things that has been curious to me about this defense is that when they've really needed a stop or a turnover or something, they have been able to provide it. Even in the games they lost, like they gave up a lot in that second quarter to Ole Miss and got down 35-14 pretty quickly, but they made adjustments and gave Tulsa a chance to win that. In the opening game, in most of their games, they've had potentially game-saving turnovers at the very end of the game. Their opener, they lost. They ended up losing that game, but Wyoming was about to win or score a go-ahead touchdown in the last 2 minutes, and they forced a fumble on the 4-yard line, and got the ball back with a chance to win it after that. So there have been some key moments where they have come through. The key players there, you got safety, and Darren Ray has been really good. Nickel safety, Bryson Powers has really probably been the standout there. He leads the team in tackles, and he has been a part of a couple of those turnovers. And then let's see, linebacker Justin Wright has been excellent. Linebacker John Michael Terry. Those are some of the key guys to keep an eye out for with that Tulsa defense.
And of course, Philip Montgomery, 8th season now as the head coach at Tulsa, and I guess it's kind of been an up and down career for him there. They had a great 10-3 mark in 2016, 6-2 in the conference. Of course, 2020, as we mentioned, is they were 6-0 in conference and playing for the championship. Last season, kind of fell back. They managed to call their way to a 7-6 record, 5-3 in conference so far, 2-2 this season. So 8 seasons at the helm. What is the thoughts on him as the head coach at this point, particularly by the fan base?
Well, I think the fan base, I believe, is a little, let's see, what's the word? A little impatient, maybe, a little kind of ready to snap at them when things go wrong. But I also, I think they need to give some credit when things have gone right, and there have been plenty of those moments over the last couple of years, even when there's been some frustration. So, I think like after the first game this season, when they lost to Wyoming, they lost a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, and they ended up losing in double overtime. People were immediately sour on them. I haven't seen a whole lot of talk about how, giving him credit for some of the good things they've done since then, which I guess is how fan bases act, right? But I think, but you haven't heard any complaints about him either, even after, another loss against Ole Miss. So not that really anybody would have blamed him for anything that happened in that game. So it's hard to say. I mean, things go wrong and they complain, and then things go right and they don't really seem to give him much credit, which is kind of unfair. But I think for the most part, he's pretty, as far as the school is concerned, I think they're solidly behind him. So I don't think there's any question that he will be here for the foreseeable future as long as he wants to be.
Yeah, and I kind of go back to that 2016 season. So in 17, 18, and 19, he kind of had to, slowly build the program, and they had kind of went through their struggles. And then 2020, things turned around, and 21 was not a bad season by any stretch. So I'm sure folks would like to at least see the momentum at least be maintained at the very least, if not going forward.
Right. And in some ways, I'm surprised the school stuck with him after those down years, but certainly it seemed like it paid off with the 2020 season. So perhaps, that has bought him a little extra leeway in that department.
All right, so the big game against Cincinnati, we've talked about that a little bit so far. If you were wiping off your crystal ball to make a prediction, what do you think's going to happen come Saturday?
Well, I feel like what's going to happen is going to be a kind of a rerun of what we've seen over the past couple of years here. It's going to be a close game. Cincinnati will probably jump out to a decent lead. Also, will claw their way back in, and it'll go down to the wire, and Tulsa's comeback attempt will fall just short. It seems to be the pattern we've gone through in these games between these teams, and I feel like that's exactly how Tulsa has been this year in all of their games, just about. So that's probably where we're going to go again. There's going to be a lot of really good things from Tulsa's point of view, just not quite enough to pull it out in the end. So, I don't know if you want to score. I'm going to say 35-31.
It's interesting because these games have been a lot like a fight in a phone booth. The last couple of times out. I mean, these teams seem to match up well with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, and it's their strengths and weaknesses kind of complement each other in a sense, if you want to put it that way. And they go head to head, and there's a lot of emotion involved. I'm not sure how it feels from the Cincinnati side, but Tulsa feels like there's a developing rivalry the last several years. Of course, it's too bad that this is pretty much going to be the last meeting between these teams for the foreseeable future either. So, because it has developed into a pretty good rivalry, at least on our side.
Yeah, well, there you go. And at the very least, maybe they can get one body shot in on Cincinnati before they leave the conference.
Exactly.
So we'll see what happens there. Well, John, I thank you for being on the show. If you would, I always allow my guests to make a shameless plug for the endeavors that they cover. So please tell folks how they can follow your coverage of Tulsa and how they can follow you on Twitter.
Okay, yeah, thanks. TulsaWorld.com is the website. I am at Isolation, which is ICELATION. ICELATION, like isolation. Little play on words there. That's my at Isolation. That's my Twitter handle. So yeah, please check it out, and I have links to all of my recent articles on there. Working on something now, kind of touching on. I mean, the big story is will Davis Brin play or won't he? And we have no indication yet, so that's the latest thing up there. But yeah, got some previews coming up, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, if you give me a follow at Isolation, ICELATION, that would be great. Thanks.
Yes, no problem. So is that Twitter handle a hockey reference? I know you have covered hockey. I know you've covered hockey in your career.
Yes, hockey is actually my first love. My first sport I covered as a writer, and kind of that's where the name came from, and just kind of stuck with it all throughout as I branched out into other sports. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, John, thank you so much. We do appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
The Cincinnati-Tulsa games, the 7 o'clock kick on ESPNU. The all-time series tied at 17 apiece with 2 ties. Cincinnati was victorious last year, 28-20. Turning to the awards on the gridiron, the Offensive Player of the Week, Tyler Scott of Cincinnati, had career highs in receptions, yards, and touchdowns in the Bearcats' 45-24 victory over Indiana. 10 catches, 185 yards, and 3 first-half touchdowns, getting to the end zone from 75, 34, and 32 yards. And he leads the American with 5 touchdown receptions, third in the league at 105.8 receiving yards per game. The Defensive Player of the Week is Ivan Pace of Cincinnati. In that victory over Indiana, he had a game-high 15 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hurries thrown in for good measure, as they limited the Hoosiers to 3.3 yards per play, forcing 3 turnovers. And the Special Teams Player of the Week, Daniel Davies of Navy. He had entered Saturday's game at East Carolina, having never attempted a collegiate field goal or point after, but he accounted for 10 points, 3 for 3 on field goals in that 23-22 overtime victory. He made the do-or-die 43-yard field goal in the first OT to extend the game, while his 29-yard kick to start second overtime held up as the game winner. We are back with check-ins on volleyball and soccer next when the AAC report continues.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
Once again in volleyball, McKenna Millville of UCF has picked up another Offensive Player of the Week for the third consecutive time. 6.17 points per set, 5.5 kills per set, and hitting .273 as she helped the Knights go to 10-0 on the season and start conference play at 2-0. Had 15 kills against Memphis, 18 more at SMU. The Defensive Player of the Week, Kate Georgiades of Houston, anchoring their defense, averaging 6 digs per set, as the Cougars also start conference play at 2-0. Had a weekend high 33 digs at Tulane, added 21 against Cincinnati, also had 7 aces and 12 assists. And the Offensive Player of the Week, Alina Khan of SMU, had the game win, as we turn to soccer, I should say, scored the game-winning goal for the Mustangs in the 13th minute during a 1-0 conference win at Temple on Thursday. The Defensive Player of the Week, Jasmine Ferguson of East Carolina, helping to lead their back line to a shutout of Conference O Houston, only allowing 1 shot on goal. And the freshman scored the only goal in that victory over the Cougs. Goalkeeper of the Week, Samantha Estrada of SMU, 4 saves in their 1-0 shutout at Temple. The Rookie of the Week, Megan Smith of Cincinnati, had the Bearcats opening goal in a 2-2 draw with defending AAC champion Memphis on Thursday. Men's soccer, Nut Allender of SMU helped the Mustangs pick up their first conference win of the season as they defeated FIU 6-4, responsible for 2 goals in that victory. The Defensive Player of the Week, Henry Sock of Tulsa, as he anchored the back line, 2 clean sheets against number 17 Missouri State and number 12 Charlotte, and they allowed just 7 shots on goal in the 2 matches, and both against top 25 opponents. Goalkeeper of the Week, Alex Lopez of Tulsa. Again, they had 2 clean sheets against those top 25 foes, and he came away with 5 saves for the week. The Rookie of the Week is Alberto Cruz of Memphis. He had 2 game-winning goals for the Tigers as they went 2-0 on the week. Had the game-winning goal against Central Arkansas in the 88th minute and in the 70th minute with a penalty kick against UCF. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. And you can follow the Nightline Sports Network at UCF_Nightline. And once again, we hope you get through Hurricane Ian, for those in the state of Florida, safe and sound. This has been the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for listening.